There's no doubt about it. World trade is bringing all of us closer together. Never have so many products from so many places competed for our attention. So much wealth, so much choice, and yet, as globalization's critics remind us, half the world's people remain desperately poor. Their misery and our insatiable passion for resources threaten land, air, forests, water, and even life itself. But what if our purchases could actually improve things? What if we could shop with a conscience? Might something as simple as a label on a product help change the legacy we leave for generations to come? By the early 1990s, massive clear-cutting of temperate and tropical rainforests had produced a firestorm of international controversy. In the Pacific Northwest, the endangered spotted owl brought timber harvesting nearly to a standstill.
I was heading up the lobbying efforts on behalf of the industry, and we were fighting the fight. And, you know, it was us versus the environmentalists. And we really, through that whole fight, we really lost that battle.
Loggers brand, cream of spotted owl suit t-shirts right here.
While some loggers chose to mock the spotted owl, industry lobbyist David Ford looked for compromise. He'd heard about a new organization called the Forest Stewardship Council. The council, known by its initials FSC, seeks to improve timber management by certifying forests that are sustainably managed.
This is the first tool I saw come along in my 20-plus year career, which I looked at and said, hey, this might change the dynamic of the discussion here. And it really has become a passion for me to find ways to use the marketplace to fundamentally drive change.
Since 1993, FSC member organizations have gathered to set policies for forestry certification. They've agreed on a set of principles which serve as requirements. For example, all logging must guarantee opportunities for indigenous people to use the forests, respect worker and community rights, be economically viable, and environmentally sustainable. It's the annual feast day in the Zapotec Indian village of Santa Catarina Ixtepeji, near Oaxaca City. In 2002, Ixtepeji received a special prize from the World Wildlife Fund for sustainable logging. Timber harvesting at Ixtepeji is carefully managed for sustainability and certified by FSC. Every effort is made to preserve the exceptional biodiversity in this subtropical forest. In the United States, the Collins companies were the first to have their forests certified by FSC. Jay Francis manages Collins' California forest lands.
I am the envy of all my peers, being able to work in a forest like this. I feel extremely blessed to work for a company who not only expects but demands that we take good care of the forest for the long term. The trees range in age all the way from 0 all the way up to about 350 years old. We've got some old growth trees on just about every acre of the forest.
Collins cut this part of the forest just a few years ago, leaving most tall trees untouched.
The trees that we leave provide the seed base.
So the company never has to plant at all. Since 1941, Collins has removed 2 billion board feet of timber from its California land. Yet the forest still contains as much wood as it ever did.
The overall objective is to leave the stand in better growing condition after we finish our harvesting process than it was when we started.
Snags are left standing and woody debris scattered on the ground to provide habitat for birds and forest animals. Collins is also restoring and revegetating stream beds that were damaged by cattle long ago. The company has already been through 10 years of FSC audits, showing continual improvement in its practices.
This is one of several plantations on the property.
In the Vermont woods, students learn how to decide whether a timber operation meets FSC requirements.
Every audit that we do will include a forestry professional, an ecologist or biologist, and somebody who will focus on community relations.
You talked about your goal is to kind of restore this to natural.
The ecologist or biologist will be somebody that has a lot of local familiarity. They know the plants and animals in that region. They will be well schooled enough in their own training to be able to say, these are the values that in that particular forest we need to conserve and manage.
Current management plan, and there will hopefully be no cutting.
Good forest management will satisfy almost all of the requirements of certification. So it isn't anything that we have to fear.
But Don Hansen did have reason to worry when his company first sought FSC certification. They'd applied herbicides to help young trees grow after a fire, and that troubled the assessors.
They didn't feel that herbicide use was compatible with a lot of their ideas of sustainable forest management. But after looking at the problems, they realized that some prudent and judicious use of herbicide could be tolerated. They actually reassessed their stance on herbicide use. It wasn't adversarial at all. It was professional to professional.
FSC certified wood can now be found in some of America's largest commercial outlets. In 1999, Home Depot, the world's largest seller of lumber, announced a preference for FSC products.
We're going to move towards as much certified wood as possible as quickly as we can. Home Depot sells several $1 million a week of certified wood products in our stores today.
Home Depot had previously been attacked for selling wood from endangered forests.
We blockaded their front doors, we chained people to their doors, we climbed the sides of their buildings and hung banners. We got the code for the loudspeaker system in every store across the country, and we could walk up, punch in the code, and be on the loudspeaker and say, good afternoon, all of you Home Depot shoppers. Would you like to see where we sell mahogany doors that help destroy the Amazon? Meet us at aisle 4.
For now, however, there is not nearly enough FSC wood to fill Home Depot's shelves. And most of its customers don't even know what certified means.
Well, I know it is treated with chemicals so that it stands up for a long time.
I've worked with wood for my whole life, and I've never heard the term certified.
But it's a different story at this do-it-yourself store near Amsterdam.
Yes, of course I've heard about FSC, read a lot about it in the newspapers here. I think it's well known here in Holland. You see advertising about it.
I will pay extra for it. I do pay extra for it.
49% of the Dutch people know what FSC stands for. FSC Netherlands, together with WWF in the Netherlands, have organized several consumer campaigns now, and they also have been very much supported by the corporate sector.
Dutch consumers learned about FSC through a series of TV and radio public service announcements.
Oh, that's the piano here. Oh.
Two Dutch producers took the lead to create the campaign.
People don't realize what the damage is when they buy non-FSC tropical hardwood. And I've seen it, and it's heartbreaking.
When Julia Samuel produced a television documentary in Africa, she was in for a shock.
It's amazing what you see, in which speed the forest has been cut down. Now, at this moment, we are here, you know, football fields of rainforest disappeared. When I came back to Holland, I spoke to Diederik and we said, well, we have to do something against this.
As Diederik and Julia began work on the PSAs, their radio and TV colleagues volunteered to help. Then they offered the spots to Dutch broadcasters.
We just say what we're doing, and we just give them the commercial and say, do you want to help us? And everybody says, of course we want to help you. What do you need? And so everybody starts to broadcast the commercials.
What about us? Is there a place for you and me? What about us? Is there a place for us to be? What about us? What about us?
We don't say don't buy wood, but just be aware of it. When you buy wood, just buy the good wood. That's the thing.
In Sweden, where recognition of FSC is also high, nearly half the country's extensive forests are certified, including those owned by Sveaskog, the national timber company. In mid-April, hundreds of reindeer moved through Sveaskog timber in Swedish Lapland, following the melting snow into the mountains. The native Sami people have herded reindeer in Swedish forests for centuries. Under FSC rules, they must be permitted to continue doing so. FSC rules also require that certified timber be carefully tracked all the way from the forest to the ultimate consumer, so buyers can be confident about the label. Most of the wood from this mill finds its way to the United Kingdom, the world's largest purchaser of FSC timber. But some ends up here, in Luxila, a small city in southern Lapland. At Luxila's Hedlunda furniture factory, only FSC certified lumber is allowed through the door. Each year that wood is fashioned into 2 million Ivar bookshelves for IKEA, the giant furniture retailer.
For IKEA, it's clear that our long-term goal is to get more wood from forests that are certified in a credible way, such as FSC. It's a matter of doing the right thing. We have to take care of our forest. That is what matters here.
FSC certification actually makes it easier for IKEA to find wood that meets the company's strict environmental standards.
When the wood comes from FSC certified forest, we don't have to do our own checkups that the minimum requirements which we have are fulfilled. So that is a great advantage. So in business-to-business communication, FSC is a great value to us.
Europe has taken the lead in FSC forest certification, but Canada may soon be catching up. Canada's extensive forests are the world's most valuable, and recently, several forest lands in Canada's interior were FSC certified. This remarkable place is called Clayoquot Sound. It is peaceful here now, but it wasn't always that way. In the early 1990s, Clayoquot Sound was rocked by angry protests against old-growth logging. 800 people were arrested.
And in Canada, that was a big deal. You know, that's the largest display of civil disobedience in Canadian history. We didn't have a war in Vietnam.
Negotiations led to 3 points of agreement between the company and protesters. That Clayoquot Sound should be made a biosphere reserve. That what limited cutting was permitted there should be FSC certified, and that a business led by native people should do the cutting. That business is called ISOC. The word means respect in the language of the Nuu-chah-nulth people who've lived on Vancouver Island for millennia.
We have always used the forest. To us, the forest is a working forest. We took canoes, we made houses, and clothes. Our clothing came from cedar. We had cedar bark, cedar capes and baskets. For us, it was total utilization. I mean, the berries, the deer, the animals, and everything else.
Larry Baird is a traditional Nuu-chah-nulth chief. During his many years as a commercial logger, Baird watched the forest shrink steadily.
The rule book was made out of rubber, and you could stretch the rules any way you wanted, and it was basic, you know, log, burn it, and pave it is what it was. And I guess people just said, hey, look, we got to do something. We can't continue on the way we're going.
So ISOC is trying to set a better example.
It costs a lot of money for us to go out and do those kinds of things. There's still a bottom line for this company, right? Not making huge profits, but at least breaking even and paying our bills and employing people and those kinds of things. We still have to, we've had to become businessmen.
The concept of certification was probably born out of a simplistic view of how commerce and trade works. And certainly most of the founders didn't know very much about how the wood business works. They weren't in the paper business, they weren't in the logging business, they weren't in the furniture business. They wanted to conserve forests. To actually make the system work is harder than anyone could have imagined when we started out. The beautiful thing is that these difficulties have mostly been surmounted, that the people who stuck with it are indeed selling product now. Paper's coming onto the marketplace faster than we could have imagined. The green building business is booming. A lot of producers are finding markets.
Whistle punk, give me a blast from your horn. I got a hitch of logs all hitched up and ready to be born.
FSC wood shows up in many other products, like this guitar.
It's a wonderful sounding guitar, but this one is especially important to me because it was built particularly as an FSC model. The neck is cherry that comes from Pennsylvania. The sideboards are Mexican hardwood carrelage. And I'm always proud to talk about it and show people and talk about FSC. Some big, fairly mainstream players are coming into the system. People like Potlatch. These are folks that were militantly against the FSC, 5, 6, 7 years ago.
The Forest Stewardship Council continues to grow. The organization has moved to new offices in Bonn, provided free by the German government. It's also opening offices in Africa and Asia.
I'm very bullish, I'm very excited about FSC, because I think it's going to really be the salvation of our forest, quite frankly.